Hello, future principals. Just want to take a moment to walk you through kind of how we make a master schedule at the secondary level. I want to talk you through a couple of different points and maybe some guiding documents that you would want to have available to you as you start thinking and walking through this process. There are a lot of different factors for us to take into consideration, especially at a larger comprehensive high school where you're really thinking about what does it look like to create a master schedule from scratch. The first thing that we really need to think about and that we've talked about in our courses is how we do per pupil funding. So the district level is going to determine their per pupil funding, and from that they'll be able to say, all right, at the end of the day, your bottom dollar or your bottom line is going to be a number that I'm going to give you. So in this particular case, in this example, your district is saying that you're going to get 73.1 FTE, a full-time employment allocation. So then you really need to think about what does that look like and how do I determine which teachers I want to have to meet my district allocation. So I've created this form over the last probably 10 years and stole it from my former principal, who was a very detail-oriented person, and I thought it was a great way for us to start. So I always go through and I say, okay, what are my different categories in a comprehensive high school that I need to be thinking about, and how do I put those teachers into play? So you can see in this particular example for you guys, I've got our administration. So you've got your principal. In this particular case, we're looking at potentially 3 assistant principals. We've got a district athletic director that you can see is not included because that allocation will come from another place. And we have the school site athletic director, which is also going to be allocated from a different space. But I also like to kind of know who is my administrative team. I have a dean that you can see is calculated as a part-time dean at a 0.4. And they are also involved in other areas of the school where we use their 1.0 FTE in different ways. Most recently, we've created an alternative school that houses some of our teachers and approaches our kids in a different way. So you can see those alternative teacher staffings are taking, and again, examples of where you need to maybe think outside the box and get a little bit creative. So I've got a 0.2 that is going to be part of the alternative school setting, and then the other 0.8 is going to be used to meet my science needs. So you can see that that total allocation is met there. We're an AVID school, so we do have an AVID grade per level. So a 0.4 goes towards my junior and senior, a 0.2 at my freshman, and a 0.2 at my sophomore. And you can again see where those teachers are used in other places as we calculate and figure out how we meet that 73.1 FTE. So again, business teacher, we've got a full FTE, our family and consumer sciences teachers, so that's our foods and nutrition, our early childhood education, that's our interior design. There are a lot of different things that come out of there. And I also like to include in these, you can see, is a CTE staffing. And that tells me that I've got career and technical education staffing. And as long as those teachers meet the requirements to be CTE certified, they're going to get a reimbursement back to the district for some monetary value. So that's always an important thing for us to consider and think about. On the technology side, you can see I indicate over on the margin where they're going to meet our needs. In terms of technology, engineering, AP computer science, woodworking, welding, again, these are all CTE courses that are important for us to think about in terms of that CTE reimbursement that we get back into the school. You go down, I have 6 counselors, and we've talked about my different model where we've got 2 counselors, and then we've got 4 academic advisors, and they kind of divvy up, but that's where we account for them. 11 English teachers, again, thinking outside the box. I've got one that teaches 3 sections of English and then is a part-time instructional coach for us. We have one that's covering yearbook, some in AVID, some in SAT prep. Again, you want to get really creative thinking about where can I put teachers to be in their best place and how do I use my staffing to really think about what that looks like. You can see in this particular case, I have 11 math teachers, again, indicating where some of them are going to be located, whether it's concurrent enrollment calculus, AP calculus, using the alt school, SAT prep. Those are all different areas that we can find some folks. I've got a full-time librarian that also does a little bit on the side, teaching 1 class of something. And then we look at interventions. This is a place that we've, in the tight budget constraints that we're coming off of this COVID-19 pandemic, we're finding ourselves having to cut a lot of the fluff for the luxuries that we've had to help improve student achievement. And you can see what I used to have potentially, and where their places were, and what I've kind of made a priority and what I've pared it down to. Um, Performing arts, you can see the different courses that they teach. Physical education. SPED is not included in this allocation. Again, I think that's important for us to remember, is that SPED is typically allocated in a different setting that comes from the district level. In my particular case, at Durango High School, I've got 9 SPED teachers and I've got 8 paras that I'm able to use outside of that 73.1 allocation that we've talked about. Science, you can see again, we've got certain people in certain places, had to make some tough decisions along the way, and you may be faced with some of those as you become a principal. If I have to make cuts, where do I make them? What does it make the most sense? And you'll see why, like in this particular case, I chose not to replace a science teacher. Social studies, again, 10 teachers in a different way of allocation. We've got our art, we've got our English language learners, and then we've got our world language. And again, had to make a cut, and you can see where that takes place. So I like using this form because it tells me and allocates everything up to give me a total amount. And then I use my amount that I have from the district. I take out things that don't come out of my FTE allocation, like administration. And then it tells me exactly what I've got. So in this particular example, what it's telling me is that I am over by a 0.93. So that's where I may have to go back and take a look at some other pieces and see if that makes sense for me to continue in that capacity. So I think that's a good way for you to kind of gauge and walk through. And the reason why this is important is because it tells us how many sections of each content area we can teach. So in this particular case, I've got 92 sections of science that I'm going to be able to offer in the upcoming year, and that is a 9.2 FTE. So every section counts as one semester's worth of teaching. So if I'm, for example, teacher 1 and I teach biology, which is a year-long class, I can account for 5 sections of biology because I have 2 semesters that account for a year-long course. So I hope that makes sense, because I've got 5 biologies, each at a semester, 2 semesters. That gives me a total of 10. Whereas if I go to like physical education, health is a semester-long course, so that would only be 1 section. So in this particular case, let's say this was a full-time health teacher, they would be offering 10 sections of health because they teach a semester class. So those are hugely important for us to think about as we move forward and kind of talk about what does this look like in terms of offerings. Then another important screen that you can create is what we do is we have all of our teachers, or all of our students will do their course recommendations in January, February. Our academic advisors do an amazing job of going in and getting all the course offerings on the table for students to consider and really think about what does that mean in terms of what do I want to take. And we're very upfront with our students that say, you know, what you sign up for now is really what you're committing to for next year. We can't have a whole lot of wishy-washy and come back in August and say, oh, I didn't really want to take this, or I didn't want to take that. We really try to make sure that they are committal to what it is they're signing up for. And the reason that's important is because we're trying to match up this allocation to the one that we determined over here in our other allocation. So if you go back and you look, we were able to find, in this particular case, we would walk through and we would go step by step. So I looked at my staffing and I was able to say, okay, I've got 8.6. I've got 8.6 sections. Now remember, it says 9.6 over here, but I'm holding on to some staffing to see kind of where we land in terms of our budget situation at the current moment. So I really have 86 sections of English that I'm able to teach. So I would then take that and I would go back here and I say total available is 86. And now I have all of my course requests that have been entered through our Infinite Campus system, and it also works in PowerSchool the same way. I've done it through both systems. And you look and you say, okay, I've got this total number of students in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and it gives me a total number of students that have requested those courses. Now, sometimes you have to make some tough decisions. For example, I had creative writing that was in here as some of our kids, I think we had about 23 that really wanted to take creative writing. And I had to make some tough decisions to say, you know what, at this time we can't offer that because we've got to meet our requirements that we're offering to all of our students. So every student has to take language arts in their freshman year, their sophomore year, their junior year, their senior year. And then we also have our AP offerings, which come in the junior and senior year, and AP Lang and AP Lit, respectively. So once we know what our total is, we can then go through and say, okay, we're going to start with our priority. And these are the ones that are the priority because those are the classes that are graduation requirements. And in this particular instance, I have 273 freshmen that are going to be taking Language Arts 1. Again, this is 20 sections of Language Arts, but that's really 10 full year classes. And by doing that, it's going to tell me that I've got 27.3 is my average student class size that I'm going to have in that particular course. And then what I go is I go through and I find all the different places through here that tell me exactly where my class size is going to land and how many sections of each do I have to teach. And you can get creative too. Like you can say, okay, Language Arts 2, I've got this form set up so that if I change that to 8, it's going to tell me that it drops my sections of students down to 23.8. And I'm not sure that that's going to do me any good. I can't really have class sizes of 30, 27, 28, and I'm teaching an honors level course at 24. So 6 or 3 full year classes here makes the most sense. And we're talking about 30 class size of 32, but we're also talking about sophomore honor students that are typically less of a classroom management issue and are a little bit more engaged and on task with what they're trying to accomplish. Versus a Language Arts 3, you know, I could try and go up to 14 or to 12 here. Or I could even maybe look at, do I go down to 10? And really a class of juniors at 32 that are in the regular Language Arts, I'm not sure if that makes a whole lot of sense because some of them have such varying levels of differentiation that are needed that if we can lower these class sizes in that college prep pathway, it probably makes the most sense for us. And then sometimes you've got these tweeners. I think this is important to point out. Like Lang at 75, it's a tweener because I can't really offer 2 sections of this or 2 full year classes at 38. That's something you can't do. But having a class size of 25 is also that really small kind of in between. So that's what I do is where I try to match up each of the total available to the total amount of requests. And you can see that I will go back and forth for each different subject area. So math, we do the same thing. How many I have available, how many I have total requests. You know, in this particular case, I have a 0.2 or 1 full year course that I have to play with in order to try and do something else. Do the same thing in science, the same thing in social studies. And what we're trying to do here is just make sure that we match up so that our FTE matches our course requirements. And that's a pretty important piece for us to consider. What we'll do from this point is then we'll go to our instructional leadership team, which is made up of our coordinators, and we will say, here's the total number you have requested of each section, and here's the total number available, and now I need you to tell me which teacher is going to be teaching what sections of each class. So for example, if I were to go back to science, I would say John is going to be teaching 3 sections of biology, and he's going to be teaching 2 sections of chemistry. So I've filled his full-time schedule at 5 out of 7 classes. And then what we do is we take that spreadsheet with all the teachers and all the courses that they're going to be teaching, and we hand that to our registrar, who then puts it into the Infinite Campus system, and they're able to generate, poof, a master schedule that puts all the classes in the different periods. And then once we've accomplished that, then we're able to upload our students into the system and see where we have any discrepancies. And then our academic advisors will go back and clean up that process in order to make sure that we have the best and most manageable master schedule possible for us to move forward with. It's a very detailed and long, arduous process. But if you pay attention to the detail and you do it right and you surround yourself with people that are very detail oriented as well, you're able to create a really, really promising master schedule that doesn't need a whole lot of alteration and changing as you move into the next year. And the nice part about it is you can typically let students know this is where we're at, this is what it's going to cover, and you're in a very, very good place. So that's a great overview of how to create, a very quick overview of how to create a master schedule at the secondary level. And I know that we're going to have another example to illustrate what it looks